As a Western leader myself, my vantage point is those of us from the United States I can speak of, and it's not unique to American leaders, tend to walk into a situation thinking we know the best way to deal with it. And there's nothing implicitly evil with that idea, but the more that assumption is a hidden assumption rather than a more overt assumption, the more likely it's going to drive everything potentially in a bad direction. The old joke, what do you call someone who speaks 3 languages? Trilingual. What do you call someone who speaks 2 languages? Bilingual. What do you call someone who speaks 1 language? American is the answer to that. And it's a reminder that while we live in a, whether people call it a stew or a melting pot or a salad type of culture, we live in a situation which is multicultural in and of itself. It's a country made up of migrants. We tend to be very monocultural, especially those of us from an Anglo middle class upbringing, and we tend to assume the world best operates when it operates my way. And so that's not just true of American leaders, but I can speak more about Americans as being one. And so my tendency is to go into a situation and realize perhaps without consciously thinking about it, I need to fix the German. He needs to lighten up. I need to fix the Brit. Instead of this understated sense of humor, he needs to be more honest with what he's feeling. The Italian needs to just calm down a little bit. And you can name characteristics of people, and I'm playing to stereotypes there, certainly. But the danger and the challenge for a Western leader is to realize that socioeconomically, and often educational, but not at all, they come from countries that represent very powerful interests, and majority world leaders are used to adapting, whereas Western leaders are less used to adapting. And so the majority world people will adapt to the Americans, but the Americans don't always do a good job of adapting to the other. And it's a bad place to be for an American, not to be willing to adapt and adjust, but always to fix. And I saw this in my experience. I felt it emotionally myself. Teaching students in Swaziland, I was a physics teacher there, and teaching them about atoms. They didn't believe in atoms because they couldn't see them. And yet one day a girl fell down and began writhing on the floor in class, and I later found out it was Swazi love magic, that a guy wanted to have a relationship with her. She said no, so he went to a diviner who called up a spirit who would afflict her with this malady until she let him have his way with her. And I had a hard time believing that. I couldn't see the spirit. So on one side, both of us had cultural blind spots that made it hard for us to understand the worldviews of the other. And Americans tend to have bigger blind spots than people who have lived in a situation where they've had to interact across cultures on a regular basis.